Joy and welcome to my studio. Today we're working on our spooky skeleton and we're going to use a recycled sheet, an old sheet, and then other items that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and you can make him around $5. I've picked up the skull and I picked up these little arms. They're actually to stick in the ground, but they match the size of the skull, and that is the reason I did this. And when I made this, it was so scary that we actually had to move it because we had it moving in front of the window, and it was kind of actually a challenge from a neighbor to see if I could do this. And so this is really quick, inexpensive, last-minute project to kind of add a little bit of spook to Halloween. So let's get started. Now this step you don't have to do, but I really think it gives it the spook factor. And I'm going to be using acrylic paint and just a simple craft brush or a kid's craft brush. It doesn't need to be expensive. If you were going to hang it outside and you have a lot of weather, then you may want to go with the outdoor paint, acrylic paint, or the multi-surface paint, just to make it a little bit more durable. Now I'm not going to wet my brush. This is more of a dry brush effect, and I'm just going to pounce into my black paint a little bit. What I'm going to do first, though, is kind of get these cracks filled in, and then we'll come back and brush it up a little bit more. But so these black areas stay black is what we're after. All of it where there's a crease or a vein or anything like that, we're going to kind of fill in here. Make sure you do it all the way around the head. And anywhere where it's kind of sunken, like in the cheeks, we've got going here. And then I'm also going to hit his teeth. And then we're going to remove a lot of this. And I'm going to try it dry here, and then I'm going to probably do it wet as well. So if you want a lot of that left on, you can do it dry. If there's certain areas we want to remove more so, then we'll do it wet. But you can already see how we're starting to get that spook feel. So got a lot of that wiped off already. And I'm going to wet this just a little bit, not much at all, just kind of dampen that up. And I'm just going to clean some of these areas just a little bit, not too much. You don't want it looked like it's cleaned off. You want it to look like it's old and has been there for 100 years. But see how much that already helped. And if you even wanted to come back in and just, I'm barely pulling my paint in there, and that's kind of what they would call dry brushing. And you could even just kind of put it, cross hatch it, or put it where you want it. That's up to you. Now these guys, this area should have a little bit more paint there. Just putting that in my fingers and putting that on. And then kind of taking, if it's too much, just take it off. But anywhere where you feel that needs, just hit that. And it's not rocket science. It's not anything fancy. A lot of these, the eyes aren't even really good, so you could fix the eyes. You can also even put gemstones in the eyes. You could even put the round eyeballs in there if you wanted a different look as well. But see how much spookier that is? So we're going to set him down and let him dry. And we're going to do the same thing. If you want, on my first one I didn't do the arms and hands, but I think it even helps with that. So we're going to take a quick look and see how much that spooks it up from just leaving it regular. And this part we're going to cover up, so we're not going to worry about that as much. So I'm going to start with my dry towel here. And see wherever those lines are. I'm going to come back in and fill it just a little bit more down in there. And you actually just don't want to take that much off. You just kind of want to leave it. But see how that just, and it matches the skull so much better when you do it like that. So that's the reason I'm going to do it. So I'm going to finish my other hand, and I'm going to give those a little bit to dry, but we'll start cutting our sheet in the meantime. Most of us have old sheets, and you can use any size. It does not matter. Of course, if you use like a twin or a full, you may only be able to get one ghost out of it. This was a queen size sheet. I cut it in half widthwise, and I used it for 2 ghosts, so that's kind of up to you. Or you could do 2 layers. You can go to the thrift store. A lot of them get sheets that they can't resell, and you can ask them for those. Or there might be one that is there that's very reasonable. So there's a lot of ways that you can do it. You also could use material as well if you wanted to, if you could find some real inexpensive white material, but using the recycled items is kind of the idea. I actually was challenged. Some people got some furniture, and this came on top of their furniture, and I actually made my first ghost with this. It kind of has a square in the middle and the 4 corners, and I think I'm also going to use this piece just to layer it up some. So I'll talk about that in a little bit more. But on this, we want to cut like our top part off, or any of the seams that may be too man-made, that just kind of look funky. Now remember, we're not worrying about this being perfect, and we're gonna cut this up on the sides a little bit more as well. So these guys, on the last one I cut this one off, and I left, well, we've cut this side, so this kind of looks man-made. So we are going to trim this seam off on this side as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get that one removed. So I've trimmed off the edge, and I'm going to do about half of this sheet. You can do more, you can do less on trimming the edges up. I'll show you what I mean. Is we're going to kind of, again, this isn't rocket scientist. Don't make it perfect. Don't worry about it. But I'm going to kind of figure out where my halfway mark is. And we're going to just kind of go from the halfway mark up each side in a V. And I'm doing both layers at the same time. I've still got this folded in half here. That side. Shake that out a little bit. You're being a little bit picky here. It's just sticking a little bit. And then we'll take that one up that direction. And I would try to kind of have those parts match up so they're about the same length. And then I'm going to start just cutting these into strips. And you're going to decide how wide you want these strips. I'm doing them probably 3 to 4 inches across. And I also kind of did these in a V as I went as well. So that's kind of up to you, however you kind of see that. I'm just doing these up a little bit, each one just a little bit higher. And again, I'm doing both sections at a time, and I'm not worried about being perfect. But you do want to leave enough that you have up here to make his arms and everything. So I've got my other one a little bit higher than this, but I think this is just fine as well. So I've cut one side. I'm just going to go and cut the other side. So I've cut all of this sheet, and the point is where you want to keep it in the front. Now, if you can see on my sample, I only used one sheet, and that was fine. There was nothing wrong with that. That's thick enough. It's plenty enough. But I really liked the movement that this lightweight throwaway covering gave me, so I am going to add a second layer. So if you used a queen size or king size sheet, if you wanted to do a smaller one, you could use a smaller sheet too. So it gives it this lots of playful movement. So I've gone ahead and cut that as well for this ghost. And I went and picked up some hangers, and I wanted the kind that didn't move around when you put them on the hanger. So I found these at Dollar Tree in a 2-pack, and so they won't move a lot when we go to apply our ghost. So I'm going to grab our arms, and we're going to put on our arms before we start covering up the rest of it with our sheets. So to put these arms onto our hanger, and that's kind of another reason we want that type of hanger, you're going to use whatever kind of instrument you want to get through there, because we're going to come in and put our pipe cleaners or whatever type of wire you may want to hold that onto the bone hand onto the hanger. So I'm kind of wiggling these back and forth a little bit so I get the hole, and you guys will probably have 100 better ideas on how to do that better. That's just how I'm doing it today. So I'm going to use this pipe cleaner, and I think I'm going to try cutting it in half first. It doesn't matter really what color it is because it is going to be covered up. And we're going to do 2 pipe cleaners in each hole, one to anchor it to the top and one to anchor it to the bottom. So we're going to put one there. We're going to tie it on. Just get it nice and tight. And then I'm going to push it through again. And we're going to anchor it on to the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and do that down here just to give it that support so it does not slide around on you. So one there. Like I said, if you wanted to use wire, I just like this better for this because it's not going to slip and slide as much. What I love about this, it is so quick that you can use it as a last minute project. Now see, I have that guy kind of hands up. I'm going to do him. I'm going to pretend that those are kind of his thumbs. So I'm going to flip this one this direction, and I'm going to tie him on there, and then we're going to start putting our sheets over the top. I've got my hands tied on, and if you wanted them more pointing down, you could kind of do them just on this top part and have them pointed. I think I got them a little bit more pointed on the other one, but I wanted to kind of see how this went out. So we're going to go back to our first sheet, and we're going to fold it and find that center, and we're going to cut a tiny, tiny hole in it, just enough to go over our hanger. So we've got to find that hole now. And again, I've got that sharp point in the front and the back. You don't want very much on this hanger because you don't want it to tear your material. So just a little hole. I know I'm covering up my face, but that's okay. And kind of figure out where the middle of your hands are. We're going to show you how to do those hands in a while here. We're going to do them quick and easy. If you like to sew, you can sew it, but we'll show you how to do it another way. And I like the bulkiness of it because it really helps give it more of that feel. So, okay, so we've got that kind of evened out and hanging right. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my glue gun and my stapler, and we'll start this first layer here. Once I have these kind of straightened out with my back part, know they're kind of even, I'm gonna turn like you'd almost do a hem in just a little bit. You wouldn't have to do that. That's another thing. If you think it should be more not sewn, that's fine as well. So I'm going to take my stapler here and I'm going to pull this kind of tight where my hand would show, and I'm just going to take my stapler and I'm going to put about 3 or 4 really good staples in there so that holds that nice and tight. I'm also going to come back in once my glue gun heats up and just also hit that just enough to hold that in place, just in case anything would happen with the staples. Now we've kind of got this up here as well, and if you don't do anything, it's all going to slide down there. So what I'm going to do is I am going to give it a pleat up here, and I'm going to do it in 2 parts, and you can decide how big, how much you want to do. But again, I'm just going to staple that, just kind of pleat it right there. And if you think that needed more than 2, do more than 2, but see, that kind of gives it that fullness up there. So I'm going to switch over here and I'm going to do this side just like I did that side. So we've got him all done, and if you only wanted to do the 1 layer, then add the muslin to it. And I liked the black, but on this one I wanted to do all white. And actually on this one I'm going to be using cheesecloth because I couldn't find it again. And I would cut a small hole and have the point come to the front. And I think the black kind of gives it a spooky feel, but some other options are either dyeing it or also just taking the real inexpensive black spray paints that you can get for 98 cents at Walmart and spray it here and there. You could do just the muslin or the cheesecloth, or you could do the sheet as well if you wanted to make it darker. But I wanted to keep this one a little bit white. And I'm going to go ahead and add this second layer that I've been playing with, just so you can kind of get an idea and see how I do things and see if that's something that you might want to do 2 layers or not. I'm just finding my middle here again, just like the last time. I'm going to just barely trim enough of a hole that I can place this again on my hanger, and I'm probably going to hot glue gun around this just to keep it nice and tight so it doesn't tear, as kind of what I'm after. But see how much more fullness this is going to give this. Now we can decide if we want to do the same thing again here and kind of bring it up on the shoulders, or if you want to angle this towards the front or the back on this second layer. It's just going to give it that much more movement. Another thing is, if you were hanging these inside and you had some little visitors, you may want to turn a fan on low, and it would also kind of just give it that much more movement and play. So there's a lot of fun things you can do with that. So I'm going to get this guy situated, and then I'll put on the muslin. So I went and did this just like I did the first layer, and I really like the fullness up here, so it's just not flat. You get that fluff, but look how much more play we get with all of these tails. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun with that second layer. So we're going to put our cheesecloth over the top of this like we had talked about, and this is what really covers up anything that might be showing. And I'm going to put, like we talked about, a little bit more towards that front than the back. So however you want to do that. And we're just going to again make a little bit of a hole, and on this one I don't even think I'm going to. I think I'm just going to put it over and poke it through the holes. And again, I'm going to have the point come to the front. Now, again, you really probably would show up a lot more with the black. That is going to be your opinion. And what I did on this part, once I kind of got it where I wanted it, is I glued a little bit on the shoulders so that it doesn't move around. But see, it covers up anything that may be kind of showing there. And so I kind of know where my point is. I'm just going to add a glue part down there. Find my point again here, and he will be the last little bit that I kind of want there, and just kind of lay that evenly along there so that stays in place. So I'm going to finish up this side, and we'll attach his head. Okay, we've got that all on, so we're ready to put him together. And we've got to poke a few holes in his head, and also in the bottom of his, top and bottom of his skull. So I'm just going to do a X up on top here, so I can pull that part through. And on the bottom, I kind of want to set this part into the hanger a little bit. So I'm going to kind of do maybe more like a little V. And I've kind of looked at where that is setting, and it's right here on the bottom part, and right where the kind of cranium skull part meets. And I've kind of made a little bit of a V, but I'm going to also do that down just a little ways. And we're going to make a hanger first of all and get that in there. And you want some nice strong twine or whatever you want to use. I would rather have it too long and cut it off later than not long enough when you go to tie it on something. So think about where you want to put it, how long you want it. You may want a shorter piece. I'm just going to cut my piece off, and I'm just going to pull that through a knot so that's nice and secure. And if you want to secure it a little bit more, or even glue it with your hot glue gun a little bit, you can do that. Because what we're going to do is we're actually going to use this to make our hanger so that it comes up to the top and the head is nice and secure. And I'm going to bend this down and across so that we kind of close this hanger. So once we've tied our knot on that, we're going to push it through this top part of his head. And I don't really want to make a major hole in it. I just want it so that it comes out and the string comes out nice on that. So push that the best you can. I'm using a crochet hook. You'll see why in a minute. We want to push that down into his head because we want to grab it from this hole down here, and that is the reason I'm using my crochet hook, is so I can grab a hold of it. And if you shake it down, then you have a better chance of getting a hold of it. So I've pulled that out with my crochet hook, and what we're going to do now is we're going to attach it to the top of this hanger. So we're going to get it on that hanger nice and secure, and you can either do a double knot on there or you can tie these ends. Again, whatever works for you. That's just kind of how I play with it. So, okay, we've got that all nice and secure. Make sure you do not lose this guy up here. Now, our hole needs to be big enough that we can get this hanger in here, and I probably didn't say that up at the front. But what we're going to do now is we're going to finish bending this all the way in so that we do not lose our wire or our cording off the top of that. And if you can see that, it's completely closed. Another thing I just went ahead and did was I glued that, hot glued that, so that kind of stays up at the top of that as we're starting to work with our skeleton. And I've got him turned a little bit from where I want him. So I'm going to turn him back a second here. And we're going to get all of this shoved up in the bottom of his head. And my part was big enough. If you can see that, I've got him all the way in there. And you can either tuck these tails in or just cut them off. And we're going to go all the way in here. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to glue this hot glue gun, this part on to our ghost, so his head doesn't move around. You can either put it onto the cloth or you can put it onto the skeleton. So I've got that on nice and tight. This is the real important part that's really going to make or break you here. So I have that nice and tight, and I'm going to do a knot at the top of his head to hold that in place. So get that in as close as you can and keep that nice and tight. If you think you need a second knot on top there so that doesn't work its way through, then go ahead and do that. And that's another reason we wanted to keep that slot, the hole that we made, just kind of nice and little, not very big at all. So now we have our hanger, and we are actually done. You could do all kinds of fun things with this. You could add chains to him, you could add some crossbones, you could add some spiders, you could do some glow in the dark. These are actually kind of supposed to glow in the dark, the hands, but you could spray them with some glow in the dark paint. There's actually kind of like paint that's kind of puffy that you could put onto him as well. So there's all kinds of things that you could do. Don't be unlimited. You could even use some bright colors to kind of make him less creepy. Put a bow tie on him with ribbon. Whatever you wanted to do with him. Another suggestion we got was putting glow sticks underneath him Halloween night. So just use your imagination, build on what we've taught you, and just you have this nice big ghost, size probably 5-6 feet, just for a fraction of the price. So I really hope you enjoyed it. Give us a thumbs up. Please share our videos and subscribe to our YouTube so that we can continue to grow. Thank you. Have a fun and safe Halloween.